Hi! To prepare yourself well before a gig is one of the most important things to focus on if you want to become a successful drummer, no matter where you are playing. I don't mean successful in terms of fame here, but simply in terms of being a professional. It doesn't matter whether you are a full-time drummer or drumming is just your hobby. The same principles apply if you want to do the job well. In this video, we are going to talk about how you can be a professional drummer by preparing yourself for all of your gigs, whether you'll get paid for it or not. How to be a professional in the preparations. Several professional drummers were interviewed on Drumeo, and one of the questions was, what do you think is the most important thing to focus on if you want to become a successful drummer? They didn't emphasize skills, although we all know that skills are the foundation of your drumming. They were emphasizing the importance of three things. Always be on time, come prepared, and be a nice person or a cool hang. They also had a long discussion about the importance of answering messages and emails when people try to get in touch with you. So number one, be on time, always. And that means being early. Setting up the drum kit may take some extra time, so you should always show up before the rest of the band if possible. To always have to wait for the drummer to get ready will wear out the rest of the band. This is completely unnecessary, so arrive early and be ready to fly by the time when the others are ready. Make sure that you come prepared. This means, for one, that you have practiced the songs beforehand and that you know them as well as possible, even if it's just a rehearsal. If everyone in the band already knows the song, it will for sure make everyone's job easier. But it's really important that the drummer is prepared and can play the songs well. As previously mentioned, you are the timekeeper and the foundation of the band, and it's a big responsibility. Have the BPM, the tempo of each song written down, as well as sheets with necessary notes if needed. Coming prepared also means that you have to do some research beforehand. Always contact the sound engineer or someone that can give you information about the drum kit and the available equipment if you are not already familiar with the location, the venue, the church building, etc. Unless you plan to bring your own kit, that is. If you are not bringing your own, ask about the drum kit that is provided. Whether it's a digital or an acoustic kit is vital to know. One of the most challenging things for a drummer, or at least that's what I think is most challenging, is the transition between digital and acoustic kits. If you only have a digital kit at home and you have to play on an acoustic kit in a big old church or in a room with a lot of echo, it can be very challenging. In a room like that, you will have to play with low volume sticks, for instance, like this, and with a low volume in general. The practice situation you are used to and the actual situation on stage are worlds apart. And this will get easier the more you practice your technique, eventually getting more control over your volume. It also gets easier the more experience you get. But for me, this was a hassle for years, and it still is a challenge. So you should also ask questions about the room in regards to how loud you can play. If it is a big old church, then you have to bring cymbals that are as low volume as possible. Usually these smaller sizes are less loud. When you're practicing for low volume gigs, use low volume sticks and try to practice for the room, at least if you have an acoustic set. If your kit is digital, you will have to translate how you play when you get to the venue and the acoustic kit. It will feel very different from when you were practicing. If the room is big and the sound is easily controlled, maybe they have a shield or booth for the drummer, then you can bring louder sounding cymbals and practice for louder playing. You should also find out what other instruments you'll have in the band and what the setting looks like. Are you playing loud rock and roll worship with a full band, or is it more like an acoustic session? This will determine what gear to bring, what sticks you could use, and how you will be playing. If you can't communicate with the sound engineer beforehand and you are directed to a person that doesn't know much about the drums, ask him or her to take some pictures of the drum kit and send it to you. That way you can see if anything is missing like cymbal stands or the drum throne, for instance. That has happened to me. Sometimes you can tell from the pictures that some parts are not working well. The kick drum pedal is one of the things that you can't always tell from the pictures if it is working well or not, so I often bring mine just in case. Bring the gear that is missing or out of order if you can, or you can ask the people at the venue to replace it. It usually depends on the place if that is a possibility, but the more you know about the condition that things are in before you arrive, the better. Always bring extra drum lugs, wing nuts, felt washers and nylon sleeves for cymbal stands, and even a spare hi-hat lock. And a kick drum head patch pad are smart items to bring. You can buy all this in the music store. It's called Drummer Survival Kit or something. And I always have these extras in my stick bag. And duct tape. This is the most useful tool you have to fix things if there are no other options. In fact, I have an arsenal of things in my stick bag. I even bring extra batteries with me in case the guitar player or bass player run out of juice. And believe me, it has happened many times. And do they usually have a spare battery with them? Nope. So this precaution has saved the day or night many times. So I always bring those batteries, and it has saved multiple guitar players and the rest of the band lots of trouble and delays. Is this your responsibility as a drummer, you might think? Not really, but you are supposed to be a servant to the band, and this is a very practical way to be just that. What's in it for you? You get to play without delays. Often you'd want to bring your own snare drum and your own cymbals anyway, and sometimes you have to bring them because it's not at the venue or they are in so bad condition that you don't want to use them. Let's face it, sometimes the drum kit at the venue is not good enough, and despite your best efforts in preparing, even with some of your own gear and some necessary replacements, it's still no good. Still, a professional drummer should be able to play on whatever is offered and make the best of it. Many drummers, one drum kit. Actually, a good piece of advice can be that you should not be dependent on using your own gear. And also, get used to playing on a standard setup, even if that is not your preferred setup. You should also be able to play on other setups rather than only one, to be as versatile as possible. Not having to move things around too much and only making small adjustments can save you and the drummer after you a lot of time and trouble. For instance, when a drummer demands a lot of changes, it's stressful for everyone during transitions from one band to another. Making your drumming life easy for yourself and the people around you is a good thing. Obviously, there are some exceptions that require specific gear and setups. I have a fun story I want to share with you in regard to this. While playing at a conference in Copenhagen, Denmark, one of the other musicians in the band told me about a drummer who had made himself a travel kit. He used his suitcase as a kick drum, and he had a floor tom cut in half to fit the suitcase and lightweight stands for the cymbals. With this setup, he could easily travel around with this kit no matter where he went. Very practical if he were to play at venues and in places where no drums were provided. This stayed with me, and suddenly one day in the middle of the COVID lockdown, I felt the Lord remind me of this concept, telling me to get one of these travel kits. I found it rather encouraging that God seemed to have plans with my drumming after the lockdown, and that this wasn't the end of the world. I told the bass player in one of my bands about the concept with the floor tom cut in half. He plays the drums as well, and before I knew it, he had bought a floor tom and cut it in half. He gave one part to me and kept the other for himself. Super practical. So then I had the floor tom and the suitcase, the kick pedal, snare and the cymbals. Unfortunately, my cymbal stands were super heavy, but I managed to bring a couple of them in my suitcase and brought everything up north to a gathering there. They didn't have a drum kit or a PA sound system there. It was only a small gathering due to the COVID regulations. This kit really came in handy up there, and I was able to deliver what I was supposed to because I came prepared. In August, I came back from my summer holiday and my schedule was almost empty because of COVID. It didn't seem like I was going to play anywhere at all in the near future. But I felt a very sudden urge to go to the local drum store and buy lightweight cymbal stands. So I followed those instincts and went there to buy them. I also strongly felt that I needed to buy a hard case for my cymbals and my snare. So I did this in faith, and when I got back home, a worship leader that I barely knew had just texted me. He had seen me play on TV, and God spoke to him about contacting me. He asked if I could join them on a tour that same weekend, which was actually the day after, because their drummer suddenly became ill and couldn't go with them. The worship leader said that he didn't know if all the venues had drum kits, and we were supposed to do some worship on the streets as well, so could I maybe bring my own gear? I was astonished. God's timing was perfect. I had just bought what I needed to bring everything with me on the plane. So early the next morning, I took the plane to the city of Stavanger with my new gear. I still can't believe it. God is so awesome. That weekend with this worship team was one of the best weekends I've ever had, and this tour gave me several other gigs with this worship leader as well. So be prepared and follow the leading of the Holy Spirit, even if you don't understand what's going on. Answer calls, texts, and be available to the people that have invited you or hired you to play. It makes no difference if it's the worship leader you are in touch with or the people responsible for the event you are playing at. If you are unavailable, you might lose opportunities to play. It's your own choice, but if you want to be professional, then you need to respond when people try to get in touch with you, or at least get back to them within a reasonable time. This doesn't mean that you have to be available all the time. That is not a healthy way to live either. But check your phone on a regular basis, if it's only once a day, and respond to requests as soon as possible. If you don't know whether you are available on the requested date, it's better to respond and tell them that you will get back to them ASAP, rather than just ignoring messages until you know if you are available or not. This probably seems obvious to most people, but believe me, it is not obvious to everyone. And this was also one of the things that the professional drummers mentioned as important in the interview on Drumeo. I have so many experiences myself with musicians not responding to my texts, and it's really annoying when they never respond or respond several days after I've tried to get a hold of them, at least twice. Actually, it has ended up with me not asking certain musicians and singers anymore because I can never get a hold of them. Practicing the songs before you meet with the band is actually number one. Coming prepared also means to have the songs down. Coming prepared is not only about doing research and bringing the right gear as we have talked about, but you gotta have those songs down. What has been my rescue throughout the years in worship ministry is to always know the songs well before I meet up with a band, even if it's just a rehearsal. Back in the days when I wasn't very good at playing the drums, I always made it my trademark to come prepared. Knowing the recordings of each song and being able to play all the songs as close to the recording as I could manage. I got many comments from the worship leaders and the band that they could tell that I had been practicing and preparing myself. And I'm sure that this is one of the main reasons why people have asked me to play with them again. I'm sure it wasn't because of my skills. I knew that if I didn't practice the songs, I would never keep up, and that my lack of skills would be revealed to everyone. So I practiced every song until I could play it in my sleep, and it worked. I was never busted, as I know of at least. I still make sure that I know the songs beforehand to the best of my ability, even in low-key settings like small venues and prayer houses. It's a good thing for a musician to come prepared no matter what you play or sing. So, be a cool hang. Guess what? In the interviews on Drumeo, the most important skill or feature a drummer can have is not exactly what you expect. The answer was, surprisingly enough, not good timekeeping and playing pocket, but it was about being a nice person and a cool hang. These drummers were not even in the Christian music industry, but it was very obvious personality matters. You're going to spend a whole lot more time off stage than on stage, so keep that in mind. Be nice, positive, and encouraging towards the other musicians. If you are a nice person off stage, chances are that people will ask you to play with them again.